Hello, hello. This is Kyler in Intuitive Momentum Fitness, week 76. And today we're talking about being true to you. And I realize that everyone has a different level of challenge when it comes to being true to yourself and not worrying about what others think. But the reason we're here in this group is because most of us are very empathic, very intuitive, highly sensitive, maybe introverted, or a combination of those things. And most of us have experienced trauma, which kind of heightens and accentuates all those things. So when we are in a space of getting the angle here right, when we're in a space of being very alert and attentive and vigilant about how everyone else is doing around us, and feeling responsible for their energy and their reactions and responses, then it is going to affect us more what other people think. And I also know that, not only is everyone kind of in a different place as to how sensitive and in tune they are with the people that surround them. Kind of even further than that, I know that my situation is even more extreme than most, because I grew up in a home where I was hypervigilant all the time, and it felt like my safety depended on, and indeed there were actual real consequences for kind of stepping out of line or doing anything unexpected. I learned a pattern along with complex PTSD and just the general hypervigilance that led to all the health issues that I grew up with, that it was extremely important what everyone else thought. So as I grew up, my number one goal became to be invisible, to not stand out in any way, because dangerous things happened. At the same time, my desire to be seen and heard and validated, to be recognized for hard work or seen in a good way, in a positive light, that was still there, but that took second place to trying to stay under the radar, not cause reactions, not cause people to give me unwanted attention. So, and there were certain specific ways that was reinforced. I loved to read when I was little, so I would always have a book with me most of the time. And as I was growing up, I would take a book with me on the road, and if it was not my whole family, but it was more like maybe my second brother and my dad and me, if I was reading, then my dad didn't like that, because he said it looked like I was unavailable for conversation. I was kind of shutting people out. And so me even just minding my own business, doing something that I enjoyed in my own space that didn't have any impact on anyone else, was analyzed and wrong. and there was a whole bunch of examples of that. I after a while was told not to draw anymore because that wasn't real man's work. I was told not to play the piano anymore because that was play and not work. I was, for a little while, when I was like 11, 12 maybe, I was trying to do like push-ups and sit-ups and different exercises that I knew to do. And I was told not to do that because I didn't have self-control and I would hurt myself, and that focusing on the body was wrong. So I want to start this conversation by acknowledging that what I experienced was really unusual. And so most people may not struggle with the amount of hypervigilance that I have struggled with when it comes to other people's reactions toward me. Because for more than 2 decades, and not just any 2 decades, the very first 2 decades, it seemed like me being me could be a big problem to other people. So at the same time, I have had to work through that maybe at a level that most people don't have to work through that, because I still have to live my life. And I chose to rebel when I was 22. I joined the Marines, which is another place where you get analyzed for everything, getting critiqued constantly. And so it just kind of continued that pattern of me trying to stay under the radar, be invisible, not draw attention to myself. But as I began to get healthier, get stronger, I started getting attention for being healthy and strong. And I ended up working at a YMCA. That was my first fitness job. After it would be about 3 years of consistently working out on my own and reaching a much improved level of health. And so people who didn't know me, because I'd moved to the area at the time, people that didn't know me just, I think, assumed I'd always been a jock, and assumed that I had never had any health problems. So then I think people kind of took my fitness level as something I'd been consistent with forever, I'd been obsessed with forever. And one of the first responsibilities I had at the YMCA, my first fitness job, was to teach the senior strength class. And it was like having a whole bunch of grandmas and grandpas. And so it was a lot of fun. They were a fun group to work with, and I'd supervise them in the strength area, and then take them into the big classroom and do a core and cool down type of last 15 minutes with them. And so there were times when I would, jump up and do some pull-ups or hang upside down by my knees or something like that. And I remember I would get so nervous. Like, I didn't realize that I was actually having an activated nervous system response to being more visible, drawing attention to myself. And then people would tease me and call me a show-off. And they I think, that seemed appropriate based on them thinking that I was way younger than them and probably been fit my whole life and all that stuff, and not understanding that that was a very new thing for me in the last couple of years, to have any energy, to have any strength, and so as soon as I start being healthy, then I get called a show off, and because of my hypervigilance and my just hyper awareness of other people, that made me slow down in even doing any workouts in front of other people or demonstrating any of my skills or abilities, because I had been accused of being lots of things, lazy and not diligent, but also arrogant and prideful all my life. And so I was trying as much as possible to prove that to not be the case. So all that to say, to just kind of lay the background for why I have been thinking more about, like, what kind of weight do you place on other people's opinion, and do you let that stop you from moving forward? And if you know me, you know that I love the Man in the Arena quote by Theodore Roosevelt. It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs and comes short again and again, who knows in the end the triumph of great achievement, or if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. And that's something that I've had to remind myself over and over and over and over and over again ever since I found that quote in my mid-20s probably, because that is what it feels like. I feel like I've got a megaphone right next to my ear announcing all the opinions of the people around me, because I'm just so hypersensitive to it and in tune with it because of the training I experienced as a kid. So how do you move forward through objections of others? I remember listening to this psychologist that was talking about how in tribes, and he was talking about that in more of a overarching human perspective, where humans from primitive days grew and developed in tribes, and even though tribes are not part of certain cultures in an overt sense, we all have people that are our people, and in that sense we all have tribes. And so it's that psychological definition of tribe is what I'm using here. But within each tribe, there is an acceptable amount of failure and an acceptable amount of success. And when you fail beyond what's acceptable or succeed beyond what's acceptable, then the tribe rejects you. And that is a very primal, visceral, deep, impacting thing to experience, that tribal rejection. Because in our DNA from primal times, we have the fear of survival because of being rejected from the tribe. And so it's not rational, it's not logical. Logically, we know that if we get fired from a job, we can probably get another job. If we get rejected from one group, there will be other groups to accept us. If we have to leave a certain area, location-wise, and we have to move to a new area, then it's possible to build a new community and all of that. But our primal brain, our old brain, doesn't know that. It just knows the deep, raw, painful human experience. And so it wants to avoid that rejection at all costs. And a lot of times, it's on either end. So what I want to focus on, because everyone in this group is a high achiever, able to succeed in amazing ways. And so the bigger concern for us is handling that rejection of too much success, not being part of the community anymore because of too much success. So that success is the goal, at least the way we personally define it. What do you value? Do you value more free time, more time with your hobbies, more fitness, more health? It could be more finances, more flexibility with your life. So that is a true desire. And gaining more success than people that you admire or that you're close to, gaining more success than people that you admire or are close to can be scary, because you're not certain of their continued respect and acceptance and love. There's a feeling of don't be too much, don't ask too much, don't shine too brightly. But that's exactly what we need to do. We need to be fully ourselves, be completely authentic, pursue our vision fully, because that's what we're here to do. Not to be safe, not to be invisible, but to really, really, really shine. So the pressure that people put on us, or the feedback that they give us that is disparaging, especially when it comes to trying to keep us from really expanding or shining brightly, sometimes it's them projecting their own fears. It's usually what they've told themselves in order to stay small, to stay hidden, to stay invisible, to not pursue their dreams, to stay safe. And so they're projecting their fears onto you. And so when that happens, there's an invitation to either concede and join them in the fellowship of fears and to kind of gain the comfort of companionship in staying small, or they may be projecting their own insecurities. It's like, I chose not to do a road trip I was thinking of, or I chose not to go to college, or I chose not to take a new job, and I'm insecure about the fact that you might show me that I could have done it. And so I would rather comfort my insecurities by encouraging you not to pursue your bigness, your greatness, in order to make sure I don't feel uncomfortable. So whether they're projecting their fears or protecting their insecurities. Either way, there's an invitation to join them and have that camaraderie of not going after it, or to choose your autonomy, to choose your dream, and to risk losing their fellowship, the connection with them. And, alongside all of that, sometimes people are just small-minded in general. They've kind of committed to that, and their entertainment is critiquing and criticizing others. That's what they do for fun. I've met some people like that too. So, yeah. So sometimes, when we are, on the verge of talking ourselves out of something, it is because our own fears and insecurities are trying to keep us safe. I feel like the world of psychology is changing its view on the ego and being less harsh toward the ego, and I think that's a really, really good thing. The ego was seen as kind of like this enemy in the past, and just like I think we can be harsh and unfair toward our younger self, but I believe that we're always doing the best we can with what we have, and the same thing with the ego. So to jump back for a second, I believe the younger version of us always did the best it could with the resources it had, with the knowledge it had, with the experience it had, with the wisdom it had. But in the same way, the ego is only trying to keep you safe, to protect you. So the ego is not the enemy. It's actually very expert in navigating life on earth with all the other egos and survival at stake and all of that. So, but we're here for true big picture expansion, not just, small goals and being impressive and getting the next job or whatever it is, but like big picture stuff, like what is your ultimate success dream? When you are on your deathbed and you're reviewing your life, you're reflecting back, what is it that you will be grateful that you did and said and became? Or what will you wish you had done, said, or become? So our ego may speak caution in moving forward with dreams or goals, because it will keep us safer. It will comfort our insecurities. It will heed our fears. In general, I feel like there's just kind of, with this whole idea of tribes and finding consensus and staying acceptable and all of that, there's pressure just to agree on things. And in general, we're not great at being okay with someone else believing something different than we believe, or seeing something from a different perspective. So there's pressure to all agree. It's like when a certain dietary routine is working for one person, they may feel the pressure to try to get everyone else to agree that it's working for them also, or convince everyone else that it will work for them if they would just try it. And it doesn't always work the same for everybody. And so the most important thing is each person's individual experience, honoring that, getting feedback from your own body, all of that. Same thing with everything else in life. We tend to make formulas out of our experience, or make formulas out of success stories from others. It's like, okay, this worked for them. What did they do? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Oh, it didn't work for me. Like, what the heck? But life can't be boiled down into simple formulas. There are general themes and principles, but if it worked every time for every person, we'd all live the exact same life. And it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes the pressure that we get from other people is because of that seeking of agreement. They are trying to convince you to see yourself the way they see you in their limited way. I remember when I first got back from the Marines, went through massage school, ended up going down to Albany area, and that's where I started my fitness career. And so I was new to the area. One of the responsibilities of the YMCA was to teach PE at the local private school. And that was an amazing job, so much fun. But it was a Christian school, and so they required that all their teachers attend church. And I hadn't found a place I felt comfortable in a while. So I just started going there. And I joined a small group there, and it was actually a really good experience for me, for the most part, a healing experience, because it was the first group of people that didn't know me growing up that I told parts of my childhood to, and I never shared that story before the way that I was sharing it with them. And so they were very gracious and accepting and all of that, but they also, in hindsight, I realized they really didn't know what to do with me, or what to think of me. So despite them being very accepting and loving, they ended up kind of just seeing me as this traumatized, broken kid that they couldn't really relate to. And so as I moved on and got more success, moved forward, and began to do bigger and bigger things, they kept seeing me as that same kind of broken, helpless person. And even years later, going back, and I would visit and stuff, and I could just tell by the way they were talking to me that they still saw me. It didn't matter what I had accomplished, or how much I respected myself in life and had grown and gotten my foundation a lot more. They still saw me in the same way. And so sometimes it's not my place to control their view of me either. They get to see me however they see me, but it was also helpful for me to realize that, and to just be okay with moving on to new friend circles. And I've done that actually multiple times, where it's like I'm growing really, really fast, expanding really fast, but each new grouping of people only see me as the person they knew at the very beginning when they met me, and were not able to keep up with who I have become. So yeah, people do tend to pigeonhole us, and they want to keep things simple in their mind. They're just like, oh, this person is that, so that's it. And I really do think that a lot of people are not used to being committed to growth and expansion, so they don't even see it as a possibility for anyone else. So it kind of boggles them when you try to show who you are, when you do show who you are. So Susie says sometimes the best thing is to peace out and move on from people and situations that would pigeonhole us. Kristen says I can relate. So yeah, totally. And that's where, I have heard, people share about, Lori says, LOL, I still do that with my own children. They're grown adults. It's so easy. Yeah. Yep. So, let's see. Yeah. So I've talked to people who grew up all in the same area, went to the high school, know everybody that they went to school with. They're still best friends with their best friends from school, and all their children hang out and do stuff together. And I will never experience that because not only because I was homeschooled, but I've moved and lived in a lot of different places. And even when I was in Albany, Corvallis area for 10 years, some of those years I was mostly in Albany, some of those years I was mostly in Corvallis. Even Lebanon for a while, and so I ended up shifting to these different communities where I was at for a period of time, and that's actually been the best for my life because there was so much healing happening, so much recovery happening, so much expansion happening, that it was more than most people could keep up with. So coming back to ways that other people bring input, when I chose to leave my job in Michigan, and I got a truck and a travel trailer, and I was going to travel the country clockwise I didn't really know how long. I didn't set a certain amount of time, but I knew it was going to be probably a couple months. Ended up being 9 weeks, and of course, I was doing the circuit, having dinner with people, and saying goodbye, and kind of closing out my time in Michigan. And I was telling them that my plans for this road trip, and it was amazing. So many times people would ask, oh, are you going to get a dog, or are you going to get a gun? And they would tell me about all the dangers and the horror stories that they heard of in different cities and things like that. And so I was thinking for a while, wow, I wasn't going to do that, and I hadn't planned on that and didn't really think about it. Should I do that? Do I need to look up concealed weapon classes and things like that? Or just buy a big bat. And then I was thinking about, visiting the dog shelter and whether I should pursue that or not. And at some point I realized, I don't like this energy. I don't like this energy of being afraid of all the things that might happen, and just focusing on how I'm going to physically counter every possible thing that could go wrong. It's I don't like that energy. That's going to attract all sorts of things to me that I don't want to experience. And so I just decided that it was going to be a great trip, and that it was going to be safe, that I was going to meet with good people, that I was going to bring out the best version of every single person and situation and city that I came across. and it ended up being absolutely amazing. And really no issues, even when the most stressful moments came, there were no issues. And this was the year that the hurricane hit Texas, and then another hurricane hit Florida, and then there was the shooting in Las Vegas, and then the massive fires in Santa Rosa. And I was in each of those areas within a week of all those things happening. And I missed each one of those by a week throughout my trip. So that obviously is just anecdotal. Again, it's not a formula, but it's something that I chose and I experienced based on that choice. So that was an example of resisting the fears and insecurities of other people that they were trying to project onto me. And then over the years of my fitness healing and recovery and trying to get stronger, trying to stay lean and all of that, my most of the time my priority was to get as strong as possible, as big as possible. And so with that, as I was struggling to dial in and fine tune what nutrition looked like for me and what was best for me, most of the time I had more belly fat than I wanted. And I was just kind of tolerating it because my main goal was to get bigger and stronger. So I didn't necessarily want to start eating less and all of that, and sacrifice strength gains and muscle size gains. But whenever I would talk about that, people would tell me that I didn't have any fat. And I'm like, I don't want to show you my stomach, but like, there's some fat there. And it was so consistent and so continual. People would tell me, "Oh, you don't have any fat. You know, don't shame yourself. Don't see yourself that way. Skinny is no good or whatever." So, but it was like I still wanted to be lean. I want to be strong. I want to be lean, and so it began to feel like that was an impossibility and something that that I should be shamed for desiring, and it began to feel like it was an impossibility. But I really never gave up on it, and I just stopped talking about it. And so now, as I've continued to tweak and find ways that my body feels better on certain nutrition routines, I'm finding that I am super lean and maintaining my strength, and I've lost some weight, but it seems to all be body fat, and I'm so excited about it. And I'm so grateful that I didn't decide that it wasn't possible. And there's a lot of discussion, especially, when it comes to Hollywood and actors and possibly unhealthy ways that they get ready for movie roles and things like that. And that's a legit conversation, but it seems like most of the time the conclusion is that Hollywood is projecting unrealistic body images, and that's probably true a lot of the time. However, I still want to be strong and lean, and 19 years of consistency and experimentation has brought me to a place that I'm really, really excited about, and that if I'd only been watching documentaries on Hollywood actors, that may be doing unhealthy things and are being completely unrealistic about their body image, then I would have assumed a long time ago that what I wanted wasn't possible. And so sometimes just being enough of an idiot to keep doing what you're doing and to keep going in the direction of your dreams is what it takes to achieve your dreams. Kristen says, maybe they were just trying to get you to show your stomach. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and until recently, I didn't feel comfortable showing my stomach. So, and I don't think it's a lack of self-acceptance. It's just like, it's a weird thing because it's similar to my hair. I need to cut my hair, and most people laugh at me about that. But I know exactly how I want my hair, and when it starts to get longer than that, I actually get depressed when my hair gets longer than I want it to be. And I know that sounds so silly, but I was talking to my youngest brother, and he says that he loves having his hair long. He's been growing it out, and so it fits him, but he really enjoys having his hair long. So that's awesome. But yeah, it is interesting how much we feel like we are entitled, I guess, or people feel entitled to comment and weigh in on everyone else and try to convince everyone else to see things the way we do. And that is not what we're here for. We're here to stand out in our own unique way, and so I hope that you carry on and continue to do that. And as Kristen says, we can all be brave idiots together, just idiotic enough to keep going in the direction of our dreams, even when they don't seem to be working out for us. So even when everyone else is mocking us or telling us to slow down or to sit down or get out of the arena or whatever, we can still go after it. So I want to get to your comments. Susie says, my experience wasn't so much shaming for lofty goals as a career choice or a goal that involved risk was met with warnings about the risk and reactions like, oh my God, you need to think that through. Well, one risk I took turned into a 20-year career in my first field. Another one that involved a move for a job ended with me returning with experience that proved useful when my first career field started having massive layoffs. The experience made me quickly employable in other areas. My more recent risk was a shift to a new field I want to be in. That initial job went nowhere because of funding cuts, but I'm not done yet trying to follow that path. And even so, I learned things in that job, a lab, that proved helpful in the early days of the pandemic. So no experience, even when you fail or things don't go as planned, is ever wasted. In my hobbies or life, I pursue activities that I have to deal with pushback from others about because of risk, like open water swimming, surfing, solo travel. Over time, I recognized the pushback was predictable and ignorable. Usually, I do a lot of preparation to minimize risk, so that gives me confidence when I'm about to do something. I also acquaint myself with others who do the thing I want to do. They serve as normalizing examples. Those are really good insights. Recognizing that pushback is predictable and ignorable. Making sure that you do preparation to minimize risks, which gives confidence. and then acquainting yourself with others who are doing the things that you want to do. So that's super powerful, very important. My preparation means I have answers ready for the what ifs that get thrown at me with the pushback. It's like I come prepared for the debates, and I can poke holes in every argument, every tactic others bring. In the end, I basically just lay it out that I'm moving forward with my plans and reiterate what those plans are. Yeah. So yeah, it's great to have that mental preparation, to be able to have an answer. I did that with my dad, as I got closer to 22 before I left, so that by the time I did leave, I had all the reasons mapped out. Another thing I figured about that, or found out about that, was that that can be really exhausting. And sometimes we're not able to come up with answers for people, and in the end, it's not our responsibility to give answers either, or to soothe all their fears or insecurities, because sometimes they're just gonna have to sit down and grumble and watch you do your thing, which I know that you do. So yeah, if you can have some preparation, some answers, that's great. If not, just put in the earplugs and keep moving forward anyway. Even our folly is wiser than outside discouragements. Yep, totally. Where it gets frustrating is I've learned to ignore the pushback, but others seem unable to learn that the pushback won't stop me, and therefore cease the pushback. Lately, I've learned that there's a message in the pushback of, if you're not capable of keeping yourself safe, you're not capable of keeping yourself safe. Yep, so there is that message that is projected through their concern that you're not able to keep yourself safe. But I know and have proven I am capable, and I'm currently exploring how that message may have subtly affected me over my life, including a tendency toward worry and anxiousness. Yes, exactly. So, and ultimately, just like, with surfing, or sailing a ship back in the day, safety isn't guaranteed. And for some people, that is the point, that is the priority. And for other people, safety is just an aspect of life. Risk taking is an aspect of life. So safety isn't always guaranteed or the priority. Susie says, I should add that getting to where I am now and how I deal with the pushback involved a years-long, decades-long process of finding things I wanted to try, pushing forward, and doing them. Each time I did that, it made me a little stronger in dealing with any kind of resistance. Also, in writing this out, I just realized the scope of what I accomplished in pursuing what I want. Sometimes you don't realize what you've actually achieved until you tell your story to others. That's really awesome. So thank you, Susie, for sharing that, and for sharing your wisdom with us. So if anyone else has thoughts, definitely jump in as well, share your story. Andrea says, I find that I tend to keep my goals to myself until I'm actually doing them, so that other people's fears or expectations don't make me doubt or put off the goal out of fear of rejection or lack of support. Yeah, and that's really smart. Being very discerning about who you tell your goals to, and only working with people that 100% believe in you, have your back, speak life to you. That's really powerful. And not making blanket statements to the masses, and seemingly opening yourself up for critique and guidance from everyone, which people take it as an invitation just because you've shared your goals or direction. So Andrea continues, sometimes that's a lonely feeling. I don't have a goal to share right now, but a story from a few years back. I started an ice cream truck business with my daughter out of a vintage right-hand drive postal Jeep, Sweet Ride PDX. When I told others about it, they scoffed and poo-pooed the idea as a waste of time and money, or laughed at my immaturity or silly hobby of a business that they thought would make mere pennies. Well, I proved everyone wrong and paid for the Jeep in the few months of business and was profitable in the first year. Unfortunately, COVID happened and we didn't run the truck in 2020, and then I increased my work hours to supplement income and other issues all in that same terrible year. So I did end up closing the biz. That is my story of moving forward amid little encouragement, and it was a success while it lasted. People even admitted to me later that they were surprised about its success. Sometimes the desire to prove someone wrong can be that stimulator to keep going and accomplish the goal. I love that so much, and I love that there was like no formula that you were following. You just decided to get this truck, convert it to an ice cream truck, and you know, run a business that you thought would be fun to do with your daughter, and it worked out, and it paid for itself, and you made a profit, and that's super cool. I believe that there is magic available for us when we go after things that we love to do, and you know, sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't, but sticking with it, going after it anyway, is a massive movement in the right direction, movement of activating that magic. So I saw that Kristen, you commented on my previous post, so I want to share that here. Kristen says, this has happened with some when I share my goal of doing my first pull-up/chin-up. When I hear discouragement, sometimes I can start to take it in, but then hear a voice inside that says, oh yeah, watch me. If the ones prone to discourage did a social experiment and encouraged instead, think about how much more progress we'd all might make. There's no downside. They might even get encouraged themselves to try new things. Yes, exactly. I love it. Yeah, it's amazing, because this reminds me that, you know, one of the things that I have continued to choose to believe beyond what anyone else believed was the potential for fitness, because I grew up with such extreme poor health and lack of strength, frailty, weakness, low immune system, poor immune system, and fatigue. I was obsessed with getting stronger, and all I ever heard from anybody was that their best days were in their youth, and after that it was all downhill. And you know, they remembered, you know, when they could no longer do this or that, or you know, keep up with so and so or whatever. And so it was just, you know, resignation after resignation for a decrease in activity and skill and ability and wellness. And it was like, I don't want to accept that. I don't want to accept that someone in his 40s will only get injured if he plays sports. I'm in my 40s, and I want to live and act like I'm 27 for the next many decades. And I'm doing the work to make that happen. I'm not just, randomly thinking good vibes and, trusting that life will happen, but I'm actually taking action to align with that desire. So, continue to experiment with what I eat to make sure that I'm eating the things that support my body the most. I'm doing strength training in ways that really support my body, my energy levels. Like I'm making sure that I am doing my workouts and pacing myself in ways that honor the energy that I have on certain days. And continuing to learn more things about like purity of water, hydration, having a lot to do with mineral content. So adding salts and electrolytes that are sugar-free and fake sugar-free to my water. I'm trying to get regular sleep. I'm using blue light blockers, whether it's the app on my phone or glasses. I'm getting fresh air. I'm stretching. I'm doing all the things that align with my desires and my goals. So it's not just wishful thinking. It's not just a hope and a prayer. It's belief and insistence and taking action to create the reality that will follow. So, thanks for having this conversation. I hope it was helpful. If it was, please let me know. I will talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your week.